My name is Clayton, and welcome to another episode of the Watch Dog Podcast. I'm a professional dog runner and watch enthusiast talking to his pals about dogs and watches. How's everyone doing? Thank you so much for listening. You know I appreciate it. All right, I'm excited to talk to my friend today. I believe it's his fourth appearance on the podcast. 2 years ago, I think, the last episode we did together was comparing dog breeds to watch brands. That was a fun episode. That was a lot of fun. You know him from the channel. It used to be called Pete McConvill. Well, first it was Not So Obvious Watches. Then it was Pete McConvill. Now it's Amateur Hour Watches. He hasn't posted a video in a while, but I think that's going to change soon. My friend from Melbourne, Australia, Pete McConvill. Pete, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm really well. Thank you very much for having me. It was lovely to get like a message out of the blue saying, do you want to come on and tell everyone what you think again?
Yes.
Never let that opportunity go by. So thank you very much for having me. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I am no stranger to taking long pauses from the podcast. I have done it several times. I even officially quit and then reneged on that. But yeah, you're taking a little break now. We are starving for Pete McConvill content. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on so I could just talk to you and hear your opinions, like you said. So yeah, keep us in the loop here. What's going on with the channel?
Really nothing. It wasn't, and I suspect you've gone through something similar. It's not like I have this big coming to Jesus moment of what am I doing and I'm not going to do this anymore. It was rather one day I walked up and I started trying to sketch out what I wanted to say, and I just couldn't get my thoughts lined up. And then by the time I get like halfway through the notes of what one video would be, I'm already thinking about what the next one would be. And then I feel like I've lost the moment for that. And I'm intellectually arrogant enough to not like just coming on and not knowing what I'm talking about. I like to come on thinking, I have researched this. I know what I'm about to say. I can defend this. And I just couldn't do that. And so a whole bunch of other things going on in life. Everything's really busy, selling a house, thinking about buying a house, getting ready for retirement, kids moving out, blah, blah, blah. And I just couldn't put together a video I was willing to put my name to. So I just didn't put one out. But a lot of that stuff's clearing up now. I've got some ideas about things I want to say. As I said to you in the intro, I've got the mic out and I've got that all up and I've got all the infrastructure up and running again. So yeah, I think in the next week or two, I'll put something out. And then hopefully once you rip the scab off, you can just keep going and aim at about one a week.
Awesome. I cannot wait. Yeah, I agree with you. In January, I released an episode just saying I was quitting the podcast. I actually attempted to record an episode that day, and I record by myself, and sometimes it's just really hard. I had an idea sketched out, and I could not get it right. And I just said, you know what? F it. I'm quitting.
I did one. It was getting towards the end, and again, as I said, I was struggling to concentrate on the topic at hand. And so I've written it. I've even started doing some of the video work, and I listened back to it. And I thought, that's just all wrong. And I binned about 3 hours worth of work. And yeah, like I said, life just caught up and I moved on.
Yep.
But yeah, I think, I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling like it's time to come back.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it this go round. It's been a good 14 or 15 weeks of releasing a podcast every week. So I feel pretty good about that. That's probably the most consistent I've ever been in the 5 years I've been doing it. So just doing it on my own terms. If I have to take a week off, I don't beat myself up over it. Couple weeks off even. Like actually was supposed to release an episode Monday, just released it tonight, Friday night. And I don't care. It's out. It's out. You can listen to it. That's the thing about podcasts. They're just sort of available. They're evergreen. And I also try to do evergreen topics as well, where 2 years down the road, if you discover my podcast, you can kind of pick up anywhere. That's why I don't really understand the new release, the people who do the new release podcasts. I guess they get a lot of clicks, immediately, but they're not very evergreen.
That's absolutely right. I think that's a form of content that really suits the professional podcaster / YouTuber. Like you sit down, you're putting out your 3 videos a week. you would like to think one or two, maybe one of those has some sort of lasting benefit, but the others not so much.
Yeah.
And they're okay with that. You know, they did their 5-6 hours worth of work. They put that video out. If you're a big enough channel, you get 50,000 views. You make up, you know, you get a couple of $100 for it. Good, move on. The fact that it is interesting. I have some videos where I talk around more philosophical topics, which at the time get hardly any views. Or, you know, I get, for me, a decent number of views, 2,000. But I haven't put a video out in 6 months. But if I go look, those videos are still getting 100, 200 views a week. Because, you know, the types of collector that are out there doesn't change just because someone put out a new integrated sports watch.
That's right. I've dabbled in YouTube, mainly just shorts. I have a channel, and this podcast gets released. The RSS feed is shared with YouTube now. It has been for a little while, so they get just released, and it's just the logo. But I did a 20-second video comparing two G-Shocks, and I released that at the beginning of the year, and it almost has 100,000 views. I get comments on that almost daily. 20-second G-Shock comparison short, and I'm like, wow, this has staying power somehow. I mean, it's crazy. Hundreds of comments.
And shorts are weird. They they hardly monetize at all. So, but they're, if you're desperately hoping that someone sees, they're really just ads for your channel, I think.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered. It's all a little bit too much for me.
I understand.
I just sounded old, didn't I? I just sounded really, really old.
I don't really
Can
get
we cut
them.
That bit out?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can. I'm totally not.
Leave it in.
I'm totally leaving that in. As a viewer of YouTube, I never look at shorts, but I get why content creators would make them. Yeah, there's something just fun. You can clip a full video and just put a snippet in just to give people a tease, a taste of what you're going to talk about in that video. So I understand it, but I don't really consume them much.
Yeah, and I think I will, if I want to take the channel seriously, I think I have to do shorts, but I will do exactly what you said, which is it'll be a longer form video. And by longer, I mean I'm going to be aiming to keep everything under 10 minutes. But, you know, you might get 3 shorts out of that. So we'll see.
Well, we always have
enough about me.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
You came up with 2 really good, a bunch of topics actually, but we kind of picked from 2, and depending on time, I think we can tackle both of them. So if you want, why don't you introduce the first one you want to talk about? Your pick.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is, this came out of an idea of, again, one of these videos of what kind of collectors are out there. But in particular, what I want to do is use it as kind of a tool set for helping people understand who they are. So sort of here are some different types of ways that people collect. If you figure out, here are some ways that you could think about yourself, and it might help you figure out how you want to do things. And one of the things I was thinking about, are you a wide or a deep collector? So are you, and what I mean by that is a wide collector is someone who wants to have maybe a lot of watches, maybe not a lot of watches, but you want the watches to cover a wide variety of different things. You want a wide variety of colors, a wide variety of materials, a wide variety of genres. You kind of, if you've got 10 watches, you want 10 watches, each one of which would be ideal for 10% of your time and utterly useless for the other 90. Or are you a deep collector? You like black dialed, we could go really deep and say you like Speedy Pros.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have 10 Speedy Pros or 10 Seiko Pogues or 10 black dial dive watches. And that's perfectly legitimate. Neither is right or wrong. It's just, I think it's helpful to sit down up front and say to yourself, look at what I do. Look at how I buy knives, or look at how I buy sneakers, or look at how I buy clothes. How am I likely to play out? And you'll probably end up wasting a lot less money.
Yeah.
So how would you class yourself as a watch collector? Are you a wide kind of guy or a narrow or a deep kind of guy?
I think I'm definitely wide. I don't like to have a lot of redundancy. You and I are different. I don't want a big collection. I like to have a small collection of watches I wear regularly, and I want them all to be different. I'm not checking any boxes. Like I need a chronograph. I need a world timer. I just don't want them to be. I don't want a ton of redundancy. Like I wish I could be deep in a way, like collect, like you're on the Casual Watch Talk live stream with Seiko Todd, who goes all in on the speed timers, right? Like part of me thinks that's way cool, like to get into a certain watch that deep where you collect every reference you possibly can. I'm not capable of it. I know myself. Yeah.
No, I'm very much like you. I look at that and I see that it is cool.
Yeah.
And there is no way I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm kind of halfway between being wide and deep, in that. So I have quite a large collection, which leads you towards being wider generally.
Yeah.
There are elements of that which I would call are quite deep, and so I'd say I've collected, still collect vintage Alpina watches. So you could look at that and say there's a box of 24-ish, Alpina watches. That's quite deep. But then within that, I'll only have one version of each. And this is one of the other distinctions between the wide and the deep collector. Once I've got something that's kind of in that space, that's it. I move on to the next space. I'm not looking to see, I've got a 1968 Tropic Proof. I wonder if I can get another 1968 Tropic Proof in better condition or with the black dial or, what in some slightly different way. It's like, no, I've ticked that box. Now I just move on to something completely different. I'm not an improver on what I've got.
Yeah. Okay. I've dabbled in being deep, I think, collecting a bunch of Seiko divers or whatever it might be. Going down rabbit holes. And I always find that it leads to some stress and it leads to just impulsively selling everything off. And I've never been happier I'm not really a stressed out collector anymore because I found what I like and kind of where I need to be in the hobby to just enjoy it and not be Jeff McMahon. I love Jeff to death, but I don't know. I was there for a while, maybe not to that degree, but the hobby gave me a certain level of stress and I don't feel that at all anymore. And I just kind of figured it out a little bit.
Yeah, I have a little bit of stress, but what I would say is my approach is like I said, I have this mixed idea. My collecting is kind of a little bit wide, a little bit deep. So there are parts of the collection where I collect Alpina watches. Okay, so that's quite narrow. And then there's a part where I collect travel watches. So anything with a travel function, which gives you a fair bit of width as well.
Yeah.
I've recently got a box where I'm going, this is going to be my Breitling box. So if I stopped there, that would be fairly tight. But then I've got another box, which is, these are watches I just absolutely love and follow no rules, but I had to buy. And I give myself that sort of, pressure release. So I would say I maintain a little bit of, if you like, stress in my collecting, but it's the kind of stress you feel when you're going for a slightly harder than normal bike ride, or a slightly harder than normal run. It's kind of the stress that you enjoy and that helps you grow, not the stress that lingers with you afterwards and stops you sleeping.
Right.
So it's the difference between pain and suffering. I feel a little bit of pain, but I never suffer. Whereas Jeff seems to suffer at the altar of watches. I don't get it. Why would you do that to yourself?
My Aura ring tells me that stress is good for me. That stress pops up during the day. You're engaged, it says. Maybe that's what we can call it. You're engaged.
That's right. Well, I think someone heard, I can't remember what it was. The difference, a game is any random activity that you impose some arbitrary rules on. So, walking up and dropping a ball in a hole is not a game. Taking that ball and saying, now let's see you do it by hitting it with a stick 100 yards.
Yeah, that's a game.
We've got a game. So I look at watch collecting that way. The rules are there to help me enjoy the game, but they're not there to make me suffer.
Yeah. Yep. I think I legitimately used to suffer, and I think I'm with you now. Of course, there's always a little stress, but yeah, it's good, healthy stress. It's not like it used to be. Because I used to sell a lot, and boy, that really is stressful. That's real stress, and I don't impulsively really buy or sell these days, and that just makes me happy. It's a much slower game.
What do you find more stressful? What would you find more stressful, buying a $10,000 watch or selling a $10,000 watch?
Oh gosh, I don't. They're both pretty stressful. Selling, I think.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely the same. I won't say I'm totally comfortable buying a $10,000 watch. I'm absolutely not. I'm stressed out, and I am watching that thing track the whole way. But when I have sold an expensive watch, which I've only done once or twice, I have suffered in a way I don't ever want to suffer again. Yeah. I don't ever want to feel that again.
You're probably losing a bigger chunk of money, and if it's even financial, but then there's just all the other worries too, like shipping and insurance and all that kind of stuff can be stressful.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think there's a part of it for me where I think, if I'm buying a watch, the worst that can happen is I can lose money. That's the worst that can happen.
Yeah.
If I'm selling a watch and something goes wrong, I can lose money and I can actually hurt someone else.
Yeah.
I can maybe through my own fault, but maybe negligence, maybe a lack of care, I can actually hurt someone else. And I don't want to do that. I feel much more weight on me as a seller than as on a buyer.
Yeah. Then where are you selling the watch? There's a whole lot of stress there. Who's buying it? There's stress there.
Oh, yeah, especially if it's buying into or out of the United States at the moment.
Oh,
you guys are just crazy.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that. We could do a whole podcast about that. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we could talk about that off air. But yeah, oh gosh, I mean, I don't know. Omega's raising their prices again. I see October 1st. I think it's global. I'm not sure if it's just US or global.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know. I got a phone call from my local. Once upon a time, many, many years ago, I bought a watch from JLC from their boutique. So I'm now one of their best friends, and they ring me up every time there's a price rise coming to say, if you want to buy something, now's your time. And so they gave me a call. So there's another price rise coming in the Richmond group. At least in the defense of the Richmond guys, and I don't know if this is global or whether it's just in Australia, there is actually some real benefit to getting that phone call, in that what they will let you do is, even if they've got the watch, you can basically walk in, give them 30% deposit. You've got like 5 months to pay it off. And if the price goes up in the meantime, it doesn't matter to you. The price was locked at the time you made the deposit.
That happened with your Polaris, right?
Yeah. So with the Polaris, I bought a watch from them for $13,000. And then by the time I picked it up, because it had to be, it took 7 months to get delivered, that watch had gone up to like $16,000, but I still only paid $13,000.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
So Rolex does not treat their customers that well.
I got an email from my Rolex AD the other day wondering if I was still interested in the titanium Yachtmaster, which I put in for 2.5 years ago when it came out. And I thought there was no way in heck that I'll be able to get one. And she said, no, I hope to get you one day. I hope to send you the email. They've only seen one since they were released 2.5 years ago. So I'm still not holding my breath, but at least I guess maybe I'll get one. I don't know.
Yeah. If they've only seen one, it makes you wonder just how few are they producing of those things.
Yeah.
It's and how many Lady Jajusts have they made in the same time?
I mean, I know a couple people that have the titanium Yachtmaster, and you see them on, secondary sites. I mean, gosh, you see them for 10 to 13,000 over retail. I mean, they're out there. Somebody's getting them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's an interesting question. I mean, we're jumping off the topic, but who cares?
Yeah.
That's a really fascinating question. Like, I was looking at, I'm not going to buy a Rolex. It's not my brand. It's not who I am. But, you can't help but watch them. They're like car accidents. I don't want to be in one, but I don't want to miss one.
Right.
So it's funny. It's like, if I can buy a two-tone or potentially even full gold Daytona for within spitting distance of an aftermarket steel Daytona, why would I ever buy steel?
Yeah.
But people do. I think right now a 36 millimeter like two-tone Explorer is cheaper than the steel Explorer. Why would you ever buy the steel? Well, the two-tone looks really ugly, so I get why you would not buy that one. But the Rolex is in this weird position of, if you go 10 grand over retail on a titanium Yachtmaster, for that money, you could probably get a gold sub. Just go there.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Well, are people worried about resale and that's why they don't? Because steel, for whatever reason, has a better resale value? Is that why?
I have a theory. It's controversial, I suppose. My theory is that there are a selection of Rolex watches and a couple of APs and a couple of Pateks where we as the consumers are irrelevant to the price. Mm-hmm. Where institutional investors like Watchbox and 1916 Company and those guys, they own hundreds of these watches. And they sell to, I know a guy who, during the peak of this whole pandemic-y thing, he was having a Rolex a month shipped to his secure store. So he's got 100 of these things. They set the price of the investment watches by trading them like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like currency traders set the price, and every now and then we as consumers decide we're going to dabble in that market because we like that particular item, but we're not setting the price. The price is set by the big institutional investors that are moving stock between themselves, and it's based more on their sentiment about where the business is going than on consumer desirability for a particular product. And for that to happen, you have to have relatively large amounts. You have to have a fairly large pool of liquidity. So you need to have a number of these watches. There need to be potentially tens of thousands of them in the system. That only works with steel. There aren't tens of thousands of gold Daytonas and platinum Daytonas and stuff like that. And so they can't ever become a currency. They can only ever be interested to individual buyers. And as a result, they fall in price. And that's why steel sports watches have this kind of weird space of they've become tradable commodities because there's enough of them and they're relatively cheap to enter the market, and you can have a pool of liquidity that a precious metal one won't.
Huh, that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense. 1916 has been accused of doing that with a few brands, FP Journe, I believe. So I'll have to go through and look at their FP Journe offerings and see if they're steel or if they're a mix of both precious metal and steel.
They've been trying to do it with De Bethune too.
Yep.
So I think that's a slightly different model where they came in and with FP Journe, they were accused of basically draining the market and holding everything.
Yes.
And then using their media channels to pump it. So that's a slightly different mix. But yeah, it's equally artificial.
Do they have ownership stake in Debethune? Isn't there something like that?
I think they bought Debethune.
Okay, yep.
I think it's that one.
Tim Mosso just got one.
Which is really awkward. Yeah, which is really awkward because, look, I'm a big Tim Mosso fan, but then it becomes awkward when he goes on, and I think he did a recent video saying how great it was he got to buy his Grail watch, a Grail de Bethune, and I can't help myself but think, yeah, and you work for the owner? Is this just an ad?
Yeah.
And it's terrible. It's probably not. It's an excellent watch. I can get why he wants it, but I can't get that thought out of my head.
I think he has said that he was a fan of the brand before all that went down with them owning it. So we have to take him for his word. I believe him.
I suspect it's right. And it's that ugly little cynical voice in the back of my head that just says, yeah, you suspect it's right because you liked him and you want it to be right.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're jaded. We've talked about this before. But you never know who you can trust. I don't know if you listened to my Oura Ring episode, but I was double wristing with a Garmin, but I got a rash, so I wanted to get an Oura Ring, like something else. So I was looking at a couple different rings, Oura and then Ultra Human, and I saw a lot of videos where people preferred Ultra Human, but almost all of them got the Ultra Human ring for free. And I was like, oh boy, now I've been jaded about watch, reviewers doing that for some time, because mostly I just watch content for entertainment. But now I'm looking to actually make a purchase about something that's going to replace a Garmin, which I actually rely on quite a bit. And it was interesting to see it from that lens. Like, oh man, is this authentic? Do they really feel this way? Or are they saying this because they got a free ring?
Yeah. And I think that's particularly true in areas where the product continues to have utility. Watches don't really have utility. Let's be honest. They don't.
Yeah.
We buy them because we like them. Let's just embrace that and move on. But with an Oura Ring or a Garmin or photography, which is my other kind of sideshow, then it's actually the text, the specs and what it does and how it performs. That actually matters. That's actually really important. And then you start really worrying about, what was this person paid to say? What was this person not allowed to say, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so you went for the Oura Ring. I saw the video. I haven't watched it. So everyone go listen to the full podcast and don't listen to this next 30 seconds. But have you found it?
Oh, I really like it. I like it a lot. It gives you, like I said, the stress information is fascinating. I drive a lot, and during certain times it tells me I'm stressed out when I'm driving. And then, that can be stressful. The sleep data is pretty good. I don't get nearly enough sleep. It's a lot more detailed than what the Garmin gives you. It'll detect naps too. If you take like a 30-minute nap, it'll detect that, and then it'll tell you how it, affects your energy score and activity score and all that. So I like it. I really like it.
What Garmin did you have? What Garmin have you come from?
I have the Tactics 8, which is sort of the military. You can. I've had many over the years. I had the Instinct 2, I think, was the last one before the Tactics 8. But I suspect I have a nickel allergy, and that's what's mixed with sweat and all that other stuff. But that probably was what was irritating my wrist to the point where I can't wear it regularly anymore. I run with it, of course, still and everything. But as far as double wristing all the time, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. No, I'm lucky. I don't have a nickel allergy. So therefore, I'm genetically predisposed to being a Rolex owner. But no, still haven't gone there. So I've been. I don't even think of it as double wristing anymore. But I've been wearing a Garmin on one wrist and a watch on the other for, 10 years now. I think I was wearing a Garmin before I started wearing watches, and I wasn't going to take the Garmin off. So
I'm with you there. It's a tool for fitness, and actually getting text messages on it was helpful for my job. So I really liked that. I turned off almost every other notification except text messages were, if I was away from my car, I could still get them because the signal was strong. The Bluetooth signal worked still. So that was handy, but I'm getting used to not having that. It's actually nice to be a little less connected And I'm not like glued to the stats of the Oura Ring. Sometimes I'll forget about it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, how many steps did I get today? I'm way less. I used to be really focused on meeting my step goal. And I noticed with the Oura Ring, I'm not so much.
Well, yeah, because it's collecting it's that lack of a screen.
Right. Right.
Yeah, unless you go and actively break out your phone, you won't know.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think about it occasionally, but is the Aura still a subscription model?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't like the idea of a subscription model, and I'd also not like the idea of saying, well, I still need to use the Garmin when I go off and do something else.
Yeah.
Like if I am doing a park run and I want to like make sure I'm not about to die as I run up that hill, I still need the Garmin.
Yeah. Had I not had this allergy, I would still be wearing the Garmin just like before. But it's kind of nice. It actually is kind of nice to not wear a watch on both wrists. But I did get used to it. I actually quite liked it for a while. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about Australia, but and I talked about this too. Ultra Human was sued by Oura in a patent suit, and they won. So in the U.S., after October 21st, I think, Ultra Human is not allowed to sell their current offerings in the United States anymore. And I'm not sure if that's in other countries. I know Ultra Human is suing Oura in India and other countries too. So it's kind of like Samsung and Apple used to be. They used to have a lot of lawsuits going back and forth. Yeah,
I remember reading about that somewhere, but I haven't really been tracking it.
Yeah. Boy, we got way off topic, didn't we?
We did. But it's an interesting topic. We can kind of slide sideways, if you want, into the second topic of this idea of social media and how the watch social media, and this is kind of where I was also thinking about when I'm coming back into videos and thinking of making videos. One of the things that struck me is when I went back to start watching a lot of videos is people were talking about Tudor as this massive powerhouse. And I think I said into you, I kind of call this the Tudor paradox of Tudor is killing it. Tudor is taking on Omega. Tudor is going to be this big thing that's going to one video spoke about the Black Bay as the most important watch of the last decade. And video after video talking about the powerhouse that is Tudor. When you look at the Morgan Stanley numbers, they've never got higher than number 15 on the list, and over the last 3 years have been tumbling down and have now dropped out of the top 20. And you've got this weird paradox of people saying this brand is massive when you actually look at the sale numbers, they're kind of nowhere. And if you look at the average price of the average Tudor, it's not a Black Bay. it's their cheaper models that are propping them up. So it's this weird idea of, does social media actually tell us anything real about what's going on in the watch world? So if you're on Instagram and you don't see anyone wearing a Panerai, it is tempting to say, Panerai's falling over and they're not selling and no one's ever buying them again and they're going to collapse. When in fact, maybe there's a ton of people buying Panerais. They just don't feel motivated to tell you about it. And so, I've become real. And the other example I'd give is video after video talking about how Breitling's falling in a hole and Breitling doesn't know what they're doing and Breitling's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what fits, what sticks. And yet they've come from nowhere and they're now firmly entrenched in the top 10 of the biggest watchmakers in the world, or Swiss watchmakers. So it's just this, can you trust anything? Not because people are bad or they're lying or whatever, but because if you're in social media, you're just recycling the crap that social media gave you and intensifying it and not reflecting the real world in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, the Morgan Stanley report, and based off of your videos, I think that's where I kind of first learned about it, because you did a deep dive just about every year that I've been into watches on it. And the brands that enthusiasts sort of rag on, like Breitling, Tag, they outsell Tudor, but you'd never know it based on all the top YouTubers and the content and the time that they give Tudor versus the time they give Breitling and Longines and Tissot massively outsell Tudor. But yeah, again, you'd never know it in a million years. And those, Tudor I see it all the time, favorably compared to Omega. And I know you're not the biggest fan of Tudor. I get bored of them, but I've never had bad luck with them from a quality standpoint. They've always rock solid, and the movements are just like dead on. They're almost like high accuracy quartz.
Absolutely. Not for an instant saying they're bad watches.
Yeah.
And I can, it's just that, and as I said, people, and I think it reflects, for example, there's a good example when we compare Tudor and Omega as a brand. What tends to happen is a YouTuber comes on and they're thinking, or really anyone in social media. So it could be some random commenter on Watch Crunch, or what they're thinking about is, I'm after a dive watch. I'm thinking about buying a dive watch. So what they compare is, in that very narrow moment, the Black Bay 58 might be brought, or a Black Bay might be, or a Pelagos, quite close to an Omega Seamaster. You know, they're very similar kind of technologies, pretty similar kind of fit and finish, similar kind of space in the market. And so for that person, through that lens, they're saying Tudor and Omega are roughly the same. But they never stop to think, you're comparing the very best that Tudor makes with quite literally the cheapest watch Omega makes.
That's right.
The Seamaster 300 is the cheapest watch in the Omega lineup. Everything goes up from there. With Tudor, that particularly that METAS certified monochrome diver, that is the very best they can do. There's nothing over it. And so to say, but on that basis, they're comparable brands, just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I'm not really just picking on Tudor are the sort of the poster child for this paradox, but they're not alone. It would be Oris falls into that category as well. I mean, they barely scrape into the top 50. But if you particularly if you looked at the coverage they got a couple of years ago, you would think they're a really huge brand. It's interesting that their coverage has fallen off, and that's a completely different topic. I'd be fascinated to see why that is.
In-house movement, you think prices got too high?
It could be, or it could be as simple as the reason they were getting that social media push is they had a very active and engaged media liaison department that was keeping everyone sort of happy and bubbling along. And then as soon as that dried up, because you can't keep that up forever, the watches just kind of bumble off.
Yeah.
And then again, looking back at the Breitling Tudor mix, it's also interesting that for the first time since George Kern took over in 2017, Breitling have made watches available to YouTubers to review. And then suddenly, like, even though not much has really changed over the last 2 or 3 years, this is a change that's been going for almost 10 years. People like Adrian Barker and what's her name?
Britt.
Watch Gringer woman.
Britt.
Yeah, Britt. And the guys at Worn and Wound, for the first time in 10 years, they got given a press piece. Suddenly they've discovered the brand. So it's this element of, I think the amateur YouTubers, that's kind of why I'm calling myself Amateur Hour Watchers. We are complete amateurs.
Oh, gosh.
We are we're not professionals. We don't hold ourselves to any kind of standards. We just sort of follow our nose and see where it leads. And we're easily led by a well-oiled social media engagement team. So Tudor invite you to a lot of events. Tudor invite you to a lot of places. It's not that you're not being bought in terms of, I want to be nice to these people or whatever. It's just like someone's at least telling me stuff, I can repeat this. Someone sent me a watch, I can talk about this. If Breitling introduces the new Premier but never sends you one, what are you going to do? You just ignore it and move on to the brand that did send you one. So I think that's, in a way, like Tudor and Oris and Christopher Ward and all those guys, yeah, they're good watches, don't get me wrong. But I think what they really emphasize is the massive importance of having your watches in front of influencers and content creators in social media so that those content creators will talk about you and pump you up, and then you become an enthusiast brand.
Christopher Ward is interesting. No matter how many times slick social media machines have bashed me over the head with that brand, I still can't get excited about it.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting topic. I suppose a question I'm the same. And again, in exactly the same with, I'll say Tudor make excellent watches. They just don't appeal to me. Rolex makes excellent watches. They just don't appeal to me. Christopher Ward, I will tell you, I recommend them to people at work. Mm-hmm. I'm the watch guy at work, and people will come in and say, what would you like? I'm thinking of this. I'm getting out. I want to buy my son something. I'll routinely say, a Tudor or a Christopher Ward, but I'll never buy it for myself for exactly that reason. Just the brand feels hollow. When I look at a Christopher Ward, I can't help but get out of my head. This is a watch that was brought to me by guys that used to sell kids' playground furniture online, sold out, made a ton of money, and asked them and said to themselves, I think we can do this in watches. And I'm not making that up. That's Mike France goes on routinely and says that. And there's a part of me going, today it's watches, and tomorrow it could be luggage, and the day after that it could be hats for dogs. And, you guys don't care about the product. This is the thing you're selling today. Yeah. And you make a very good thing because, to sell the thing, it's got to be a good thing. But whether it's a watch, whether it's kids' furniture, whether it's hats for dogs, you don't care.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what they stand for, because it seems like, integrated sports watches are hot. We'll release the 12. The Bel Canto look, like a lot of independent brands are going for that sort of look. So we'll do that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's
if you do a mood board of all Christopher Ward watches, it doesn't look like a single brand.
Yeah,
there's the zone of watches which are. These are watches that will remind you of a Blancpain, but they're really good, but they're cheaper. These are the watches that will remind you of an MB&F, but they're really good, but they are cheaper. These are the watches that will remind you of a Rolex. They're really good, and they're a lot cheaper. But I don't know what a Christopher Ward is.
Yeah. I mean, that bugged me from the logo and everything, moving the logo around. I don't know why that bothered me so much, but it did. It seems like a very silly thing, mainly because I have a degree in marketing and I have a business, and I can't imagine fussing with my logo that much. Just seems like it confuses people. But
I've changed my channel name 3 times in 3 years. So
yeah,
who am I to talk?
Yeah.
That one didn't bother me. In fact, that didn't fuss me.
Yeah.
In a strange way, I might have even found it charming in a different organization. Like a small group of people desperate to try and create watches, terrible at marketing, finding their way, messing around with logos. That would kind of be an appealing thing.
It's endearing a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, but as it turned out, I think it was actually quite cynical is the wrong word. I think it was quite calculated. They've mentioned the fact that there was a particular logo they were going for, but they couldn't use it for a while. They had to work their way up to it. And so for a little bit, they were sort of it was much more calculated. It wasn't a charming little bit of amateurism. But
I mean, they are having a moment, aren't they? I mean, people who like the brand really like the brand. Sam, again, Casual Watch Talk, loves the brand. Mark, I believe, is also a big fan. They joke that they're sponsored, jokingly sponsored by Christopher Ward, right? So, I mean, good for them. And I've recommended them too. I'm with you. I have too.
Yeah. As I said, they're very well made watches.
Yeah.
And more recently, they really have I would not, for all of what I was talking about, I wouldn't say, don't want anyone to walk away thinking that they're a homage brand. They're not. What I would say is that they are very trend and look driven.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you. So every watch, their Trident series is not a Rolex homage, but it's clearly drawing from that pool. They've got their Aquitaine series is not a Blancpain homage, but it's clearly drawing from that pool.
Yep. Lumiere,
put them all in one
Pelagos-ish, I would say. Lumiere.
a little bit. The Belcanto is obviously coming. No, sorry, the 12 obviously comes from the same lineage as the Chapek.
Yep.
The Belcanto obviously relies very heavily on that kind of Armstrong, MB&F look.
Yep.
All of which is kind of fine. I'm not saying grab your torches and pitchforks and let's go burn the factory down, but it's more, I will do that for Pagani, but
right.
It is just kind of hollow feeling. I don't feel anything for the brand.
Yeah, they take what's popular and put their spin on it. No, they don't copy it necessarily, but they put their spin on it, but it's familiar looking still. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so, it's like if you want to know what the next year's Christopher Ward's going to look like, well, just think about what's popular today.
Yeah. But, I mean, gosh, groups I'm in, there's a lot of Tudor fans. So people are buying them. Like I'm in the Grey NATO Slack group, and I mean, the Grey NATO guys love the brand. Jason and James love Tudor. A lot of people in there do. Every time I go to meetups with that group or another group I'm in, there's Black Bay 58s, and my wife and I just co-bought that Lagoon Blue Black Bay 54 because she loves that color. So
it is a very popular brand.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. So this is where it does get strange, and where its market presence, its broader market presence, isn't that great. Its enthusiast impact is huge. And you've also got this weird issue of the enthusiast impact is very much focused on one or two parts of the brand. There is no Claire. Do they have a brand called the Claire de Rose, the female version?
Yes.
There's no Claire de Rose user group on, Watch Crunch or something. If you buy a Royal, everyone sort of gives you a big side eye.
yeah.
It's, let's be honest, it's Black Bay or bust with a little bit of Pelagos. And you also do have this weird thing of, I recently bought a secondhand watch. Went down to a physical secondhand dealer. I hadn't done this for years. And bought a 1960s Breitling chronomat. And so, but it was interesting. So here I am in an actual watch shop with actual watches in front of me. And huge number of Rolexes, huge number of APs and stuff. Couple of Breitlings, quite a few Omegas. But what was fascinating to me is he had maybe 15 Breitlings for sale. And they were Breitlings that went from, mine was not the oldest, so they went back to about the mid-1960s, all the way through, a couple from each generation. Of the current kind of catalogue, there was maybe two, I think. There was like a 57 and a Navy Timer. That was it. He also had beneath that his window of Tudor watches for sale. He had twice as many Tudor, despite the fact that in Australia, Breitling outsells Tudor about 2-1. He had twice as many Tudors for sale, and they were pretty much all in the last 2 or 3 years, which again feeds into this idea of Tudor just seems to be churning through the same people upgrading. Like they bought an original Black Bay, then they bought the second Black Bay, then they bought the third Black Bay. Now they're buying the the master chronometer certified one. And each time those other ones, they're just going back into the secondary market.
Yep.
So it's this very strange brand.
And I think a lot of people buy them to boost their purchase history for Rolex also. So they get dumped quick because people really don't want them. There's an authorized dealer. They don't sell Tudor there new, but they have had Tudor pre-owned. And one of the guys that worked there, a salesperson, said people dump their Tudors to us because the Rolex and Tudor AD is like a mile and a half away from this AD. They're like the Omega and IWC AD and other brands. But yeah, so one guy buys his Tudors at the Rolex AD so he can get, purchase history, and then immediately turns around and sells them to the other AD.
I wouldn't be surprised if there is that kind of link going.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in a world of CPOs. I mean, maybe it's cheaper just to do that with, it'll be fascinating to see how that works. Does buying a Submariner through the CPO program kind of count towards your purchase history to being able to buy a new Pepsi or a new Daytona? I don't know, but not my game.
I went to my AD in November of last year, and we were looking at Rolex. We were talking about Rolex, and they go through them. I mean, she said we have loyal customers, and gosh, if you want a sub even right now, it's probably 2 or 3 years. And I said, oh, that's crazy. But anyway, we were looking at the CPO stuff, and she was like, these prices are high. She's like, they're too high. They had a Milgauss there. It was over 10 USD. It's just, I mean, I don't know.
I'm going to get really cynical now. Are they even intended to sell? Is the CPO program just a really clever way of kind of doing the same thing Cartier did a couple of years ago, of paying a couple of $100 million to drain the swamp of a lot of stuff that's clogging up the secondary market?
Could be.
So there's, as you said, and as is widely understood, you have to sort of climb the Rolex ladder, and quite often you have to buy stuff you don't really want. So there'd be an awful lot of Lady Datejusts and Pearl Masters and stuff like that, which if you go to Joma Shop is selling at 35% discount. Maybe the CPO program is a way of kind of just reaching into the secondary market, draining all that out without having to say that you're crushing it. Instead, what you do is you just stick it in an AD, put an unrealistic price tag on it, so it never goes back into the market. But you didn't have to swallow your pride and crush a whole bunch of watches.
She told me without telling me that they do sell them, but it's to people who aren't necessarily in the know, that maybe they have the money, but they're not savvy about it. So, I can't get what I want today, but these are here, so I'll just buy this. And they don't do any research to know that they're getting ripped off. And maybe they don't care because they have the money to do it. That's what she hinted at to me.
We in the know, I agree with you. That's utterly unsurprising.
Yeah.
We in the know imagine that everyone buys watches the way we do.
Or like 1%, right?
Yeah. So it's again, I'm the watch guy at work, and people will say, I'm thinking of buying this. And like for a Tudor, I'll say, look, I might recommend a Tudor, and they'll go, oh, that's a little bit over what I wanted to spend. I wasn't thinking of spending $6. And I'll say, just offer them $5, they'll take it.
Yeah.
and people are astounded. What do you mean? You don't get discounts on this sort of stuff. Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah.
If you say, and I said I wouldn't even ask the price. You just walk in, you know what you want. You walk in, you try it on, and then just pick. If you're within 20-ish%, they'll probably just take it. So know the price, walk in, don't ask them how much it costs. Just say, if I give you 5.5 right now, here's a credit card on the table. Will you take it? 99 times over 100, they will.
Yep. So I have a client. Yeah, I'm like the watch guy with all my clients. So if they have watch questions, they'll ask. One guy, I think one of his employees did like a business deal, and I'm not sure what business he's in, but he wanted to reward him with a watch. And I threw out a few options. I think it was like a 10K limit. And he said, I was actually thinking about a Rolex GMT Master. And I was like, oh boy, well, you're about double that then. He's like, well, I looked on the website and it was around 10.5. And I said, oh, yeah.
No. That's not how that one works.
He was kind of shocked to realize, like, that's how it works. Wow. Did not know that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I mean, 10.5, you're not a million miles away from getting like if he goes on the secondary market, not a million miles away from getting something gold.
That's right. And I actually think the root beer is, I'm not a big fan of the GMT Master 2, but the root beer is pretty nice.
I'm a bigger guy. I've got a bigger wrist.
Yeah.
I find the Rolexes, apart from the fact that the whole company doesn't work for me, I actually find them very small.
Yeah.
So I don't, and particularly something Rolex has been doing lately is making their bracelets smaller. So I can't try on a Rolex in the store anymore because none of the bracelets fit. I would always have to get extra links. And apparently I've been told by other people that's particularly bad in the gold ones. They
make you pay for extra links.
Or the two tones.
Yeah.
I'm paying for extra links. So I find them quite small watches. Daytona's only like 38. It's nominally a 40 to 41 and a bit, but because of the way the case shape works, it actually wears more like a 38.
Yeah.
And it looks tiny on me. So it's, they're a strange, as again, weird thing. But if I was going to get it, go full gold. Do the full Rolex. I think anything less than full gold is not a Rolex anymore.
I mean, gosh, I've talked about it before when I always remember, and I'm not sure it was real, but we would see my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, and he was like a real tan guy, chest hair showing, and he had like a gold Rolex. And I'm not sure it was real, but I was a kid. And even before I got into watches, maybe even 10 years ago, if you asked me to describe Rolex, I would say a gold watch that my tan uncle with chest hair coming out of his shirt wears. I didn't know about the Submariner. I didn't know about their tool watch history. It was a gold watch you got when you retired.
It's funny. I was listening to another podcast and they said basically the same thing. Like they're kind of, if you were going to go for this, like the dreaded one watch collection, they were saying something like a full gold Rolex that you just wore, all the time, never taking it off, having it would be, horribly stained by all the sunscreen that you'd got jammed into it, and it'd be beaten up to hell, and you'd be old and craggy with ear hair growing up and stuff like that, but you've got your gold sub. That's kind of like peak one watch collection.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Rolex fan. I have the weirdest one, the Air King. That's the only one I have right now. And who knows if I'll ever get that titanium one. But I gave up on it. I didn't think there was any way. I knew they were hard to get, and I don't have a lot of purchase history. I do have a good relationship with her. But I'm not going to buy watches I don't want to boost my chances. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing. And I'll keep coming back to saying this. They're really excellent watches. I can totally understand why someone would want to own a Rolex. They're excellent watches. They are probably best in class. But just the way the brand has positioned themselves and the way they've positioned themselves with relationship to their customers is just not something I want to play with. To the point where, you cannot with a straight face recommend to someone that they buy a Rolex because you're just opening up this huge Pandora's box of pain for them.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's not a fun experience. Getting my Air King was actually relatively easy, I guess. It shouldn't be hard at all. You should just, if you have the money, you should be able to do it in theory, just like any other watch or most other watches. But that was a pretty positive experience. But I know people who have waited a long time for an Air King. I only waited less than 3 months, but I know I've seen people online say they waited like a year and a half. So who knows?
Yeah, as I said, I'll keep coming back to it. It's a very weird brand. It's positioned itself in a very specific way, and that's fine. It's worked out extraordinarily well for them financially. So why would they change? But at the end of the day, I'm buying their watches. I'm not buying their shares. So I don't care that it's good for them. It sucks for me.
Yeah.
So why I don't want them doing it.
Right.
I do. That's one of the things I do notice a lot. A lot of people review watches as though they're buying shares in the company, not as though they want to buy the product.
No, that's a very good point. Yep. We get involved emotionally, and for them, it's just bottom line is money, because they're a business, and a lot of them have shareholders, and they that's why people get so offended. Like when the Moon Swatch came out, Omega fans, but this makes them a lot of money. They don't care if it, it's probably not in the long run. You're going to be mad about it, but I think very few people went out and sold their Speedmasters. They were upset about it for a day and then moved on.
That's exactly right. But and conversely, a lot of people went out and bought a Moonswatch.
That's right.
Not long afterwards, bought a Moonwatch.
I think Hayek even said it. Like after a while, the Speedmaster sales went up 50% after the introduction of the Moonswatch. So it helped.
Yeah.
But,
and I'll be honest, I love they don't like calling it this. I love the Thrifty Fathom. I've got 3 of them.
Oh, yeah. The bezel action's good.
Great. Bezel action's good. The movement looks okay. They're fun to wear. I sort of one of the things I've been thinking about is like, how do you grade a watch? What is a good quality watch? And for me, it all comes back to, well, what's the purpose of a watch? Why do we buy watches? I buy a watch to make me feel happy. That's why I buy a watch. So therefore, the quality of a watch is how happy does it make me?
Yeah.
And so if a watch makes me really, really happy, it's a high-quality watch. If a watch does not make me happy, it's not a high-quality watch. And the Moonswatch's happy to expenditure ratio is unbelievably high. Every time I wear it, I smile. I think it's fun. It makes me happy, and it only cost me $400. What's wrong with that?
That's why I hate those videos that say, don't buy a Moonswatch, buy this instead. It's way better built. Like, I don't want that, though. I don't want one of those. I want a Moonswatch.
Those videos are coming from, there is a place for that. That's okay. That's not me. There is a place where, it's all about what can you get for the money? How much, how much steel, how much sapphire, how much in-house, how much Swiss made, how much beats per minute. Like that's how they assess the watch. So they'll say, here's this really fun and exciting thing that will bring a smile to your face, but it's a bit overpriced. Here's this boring turd of a watch you never thought about buying in the past, but it's cheaper than the Moonswatch and it's made of steel. Maybe you want to buy this. Right. And it's like, no, I didn't want to buy that Orient Mako before I saw the Moonswatch, and I sure as hell don't want to buy it now.
The new one for that was the Tag F1 that was released. Yeah, $1,500 for a cheap. So buy this instead. Well, that doesn't make me smile nearly as much as the F1.
That's exactly right. And you know what? I didn't want to buy that watch a year ago. Why would I want to buy it now? Just because the tag's out.
Yeah. I have seen younger people at a coffee shop. I saw somebody wearing the Kith collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked him about it. I wasn't sure. You can't really tell if they're older or newer. And plus, it was on his wrist, and he was behind the counter. And I asked him. He said, "No, it's actually the Kith tag collaboration." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then the other week, I got a gift card to Lululemon, so I went to buy a shirt and. A guy was walking out and he had a Moonswatch on, and I even said, "Oh, Moonswatch," and I'm not sure he even heard me, but my wife was like, hit my arm, like, "Get out, go!" But I've seen younger people wearing that stuff, which is great.
And I think it works, and it works in a way that an Orient Mako or a Christopher Ward Trident is never going to work.
Yeah,
but There is a large group of people for whom watches are about, and they're not wrong to be like this. It's just not necessarily for us, where it is about that value for money, bang for buck. I don't care about history. I don't care about smiles. I don't care about fun. I just want to know I got good value.
Yeah.
I need to know I won on the deal. You know what? There's a whole segment of watches for you. That's great. They're just not for me.
Well, I was probably like that at some point, but I'm way far away from that now.
I think you do. I think a lot of people pass through it.
Yeah.
So, which is why I think, micro brands very much live in that space. Which is why I think a lot of people pass through micro brands and move on, and they get comfortable with spending some money. They begin to learn that, those specs were nice, but they didn't make me smile. The way that a more expensive and theoretically less value for money watch does. And a lot of people go back. There's not, as I said, I'll keep saying, nothing wrong with, swimming at that end of the pool. It's just, if that suits you, great.
I find myself being more micro brand curious than I've been in a long time. I'm not going to buy them, but I find myself looking at them more than I have in a long time. I had that early micro brand phase, like you said. I haven't been there in a few years, and now I don't know. There's some brands that are intriguing me. I don't think I'll buy them, but I don't know. I check out some Dennison videos and some other brands. They're somewhat interesting.
I think we are entering a second phase of micro brand. I think the first wave of micro brands, this is a whole video and discussion in its own right. The first wave of micro brands were when people first realized, I can source stuff cheaply from China. I can do this. What am I going to do? Well, I like buying an SKX, so I'm going to make it like a diver, and everything kind of fell into that brand, that look. I think that we've kind of gone through that phase. The winners of that phase have been established. Zelos and those guys, they've created their spot. And now if you want to be a micro brand, you kind of have to find what's new for you. So it's not going to be, you're not going to be making yet another micro brand diver like Zelos. Why bother? They'll just kill you. So it's going to be, I've come up with a way of making a stone dial watch. I've come up with a way of making a shaped case. I think that's the next phase.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of that stuff is interesting to me, for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But the question is, are you ever going to buy it?
No.
And again, coming back to topic, it'll be interesting. We'll talk about it. You might do a video about it.
Yeah.
People are going to say this is really big and isn't this amazing? It's going to be the TISO killer, but we're not going to buy it.
I think the me a few years ago who was first interested in micro brands would have, but now I know it wouldn't last, so I'm just eliminating the middleman because I know I'm going to sell it. So I know the end game here, so let's just not even go for it. Let's admire it from afar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's a really interesting point. I think quite often when people buy the wrong watch, end up selling a watch, it's not that they bought a bad watch. It's not that they didn't know enough about the watch. It's that they didn't know enough about themselves.
Yes.
They never sat down and thought really hard, who am I? Not who would I like to be, but who am I really?
Yeah.
And what am I really going to like? And what's really going to stick with me? And then buy to that. Instead, what they do is they spend tens of thousands of dollars buying and selling watches until something sticks. And then they realize this is what I've become, when in fact, that's probably who you were all along.
Right.
But
I think the Dennisons are really good dress watch for somebody who maybe wears one a couple times a year, and it's a good option if you don't want to drop a lot of money. And now $800 or whatever is a good chunk of change, but compared to what you could spend on a dress watch, if you need one a few times a year for work or something, it's not a bad option.
It's not, but again, it would be, coming back to that being the watch guy at work, recommending some strange only buy online micro brand to some guy who's got in his head that I want, I'm spending $800 US is 1,400 Oz.
Yeah.
$1,200 Oz. He's going, I'm spending over $1,000. I don't want to buy it like from an Amazon drop ship. That's kind of their micro brand view. I want to walk into an AD and I want to buy something nice and I want to get whatever. And so you spend an extra $200 and buy yourself something really nice from an AD. From a Swiss brand that's got 200 years of fake history and all this sort of stuff. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It just lands better.
All right, before we go, I have to share one story with you. So I have a client who actually travels to Australia, to Sydney a lot for work. And you were talking earlier about your wrist being big and you're finding that there aren't enough links in the bracelet. So this guy wanted a Cartier Santos for the longest time. He has some watches, but I wouldn't say he's a watch guy. He's watch curious maybe. But he was asking me, should he buy pre-owned or new? And I was like, honestly, the difference is not that big. So he was at the Sydney airport and he ended up looking at the Santos and he walked out and he told his wife, I'm not going to buy it. And his wife said, what's the difference between this and a new one? And he said, about $1,000. And she said, just buy it. So he went anyway. And he has 8-inch wrists, big wrists. So he was disappointed. He got it and he loved the watch, but he said he wants to wear it very loose. He's like, I like to wear it like a loose bracelet. And he, believe it or not, with all the links in, he can't because his wrist is so big. It's like tight on him.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I totally get that. I'm the same. I'm, one of my other hobby horses. I think every bracelet should be like jeans. If I was running a watch company, I'd go broke. But if I was a watch company, I would sell every bracelet like a pair of jeans. So when you got jeans, you got skinny jeans and you got straight cut jeans.
Yeah.
Skinny jeans for the person who thinks that they've got better calves than they really do. And they want that really snug fit. So you get, a bracelet with a big chunky, with, micro adjust and all that fancy stuff, because that's what you need. If you're going to wear your bracelet snug, then micro adjust is kind of important to you. And so, on the fly especially. And so you will put up with having, a very big chunky clasp because that goes with the territory. Mm-hmm. But if you're like me, I don't wear a lot of bracelets. And when I do, I like to wear them a little bit loose. I like to have them a little bit jangly. And I hate with a passion big, bulky clasps. I love a little butterfly clasp. That would be my straight cut. So when you go into a dealer and you say, I'd really like to buy this watch, whatever this watch is, Swiss watch A on a bracelet, and he'd say, sir, are you a skinny or a straight cut bracelet guy? And he'd go, I'm a straight cut guy. Okay, sir, we have this. But if you're a skinny guy, it's like, sir, we have this one. So if I like mine a bit looser, I'm not stuck with a big bulky clasp. If you like yours a bit snugger, you're not stuck with the unadjustability of a bracelet, of a butterfly.
Yeah, that makes it. They'll never do it because that makes a lot of sense. But
yeah, well, I actually think it actually opens up options for selling more stuff.
Yeah.
So would sir like one of each for when you change?
And they can sell bracelets for about $1,000. Many brands do. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I was looking at a brand recently where a link was $1,000.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, yeah. At the end of the story, my friend was like, "This is an $8,000 watch, and they don't give you enough links. What's up with that?" I was like, most of us have like 5 links left over."
Yeah. So I've got a tick over a 20, depending on where I wear my watch. It's either if I wear it kind of low, very close to my hand, I've got an 8-inch wrist. If I wear it above, it's about an 8.5-inch wrist. It, like I said, I cannot wear most Rolexes, most watches in an AD. If it's on a bracelet, I can't even try it on.
You must have trouble with straps even.
Straps, I've always got a hole or so.
Okay.
So I've never been able to not wear a strap unless they've paired it with a deployant clasp.
Yeah.
Then it can be a bit tricky. So I'm so glad that the small watch trend is dying away. Bring back proper sized watches. That's what I want.
I find myself going towards bigger watches these days. Rolex works for me, just like from a fit standpoint. I have a 7-inch wrist, which is average. So Rolex fits an average wrist very well.
Oh, yep. Absolutely, it does.
Yep.
Like I said, on me they feel a little small.
Yeah,
but that is not me telling them that they have to start making bigger watches. I don't think that would work.
Right.
Yeah, they want to sell one size of Submariner to 1 million people a year. They've got the sizing worked out.
Yep. Well, I guess I'll call this episode like Pete and Clayton's topic free-for-all or something. I'm not sure what the heck we talked about, but it was a lot of fun. Plug your channel. Do you have a comeback date in mind? What's going on?
Okay, so my channel is Amateur Hour Watches because it is a completely amateur experience for both me and the viewer. That is the channel. Search for it. You'll find it. I'm expecting that there will be a video out next week. There you go. I'm going to put a stake in the sand.
All
there
right.
will be a video out next week. Don't ask me what the topic is. I'll figure that out. It might be something really simple that I can do quickly, like why I will never embrace homage watches or something.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I think we were talking about, not getting excited about spec watches. And I think a lot about the Spec Monster, San Martins, those kind of stuff. Even, legitimate, I don't know. I feel bad saying that they're not a legitimate watch brand, but, watches that offer a lot of specs, but not a whole lot of heart and soul. And pretty soon you buy a bunch of those and you wear it for a while and then it goes in the box. And pretty soon you just have a bunch of those Spec Monsters that you really have no affinity for, except that they have sapphire crystal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to bury the lead and to tell my whole video, but basically that's how I buy my microwave oven.
Yes.
That's how I buy my vacuum cleaner. That's how I buy the jack for my car. I couldn't tell you the brand of any of them. I could barely describe them to you. I just want something that does the job. Does the job well enough and is cheap enough.
Yeah.
And the day I start looking at watches that way is the day I sell it all up and go find a new hobby.
Yep. Are you that way with cameras?
I may as well be calling it Amateur Hour Vacuum Cleaners at that point.
That's right. That's right. Do you, like your other hobby, cameras, photography, do you buy what you like, or is it purely 100% function based? I guess it kind of has to be.
Purely 100% function based.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating concept. Have you noticed that people do photography? They don't collect cameras. People's hobby is watches, not telling the time. So photography is all about the end result. When photographers sit around and talk about stuff, what they're normally exchanging with each other are the photos they took, not the camera they took it with. But when watch people get around, they never sit around and say, Clayton, remember that time you told me the time back in Japan?
Yeah.
How amazing that was. No one has ever told me the time with such clarity.
Yeah,
before.
that's right.
No. Watch collecting and photography are two completely different things. One is about achieving an aim. One is about owning the thing that achieves that aim.
No, I'm sure there are like antique camera collectors and stuff like that.
Oh, there are. They all own Lycras.
Yeah.
There's a huge crossover in watch collectors and Leica owners, and Leica owners lean much more heavily into I'm interested in the camera than the product that comes out of the camera.
So much so, Leica even makes watches now.
It is utterly unsurprising that a camera company that is very focused on the camera is also selling a watch.
Yeah.
That's a marriage made in heaven.
All right. So speaking of burying the lead, we buried your plugging of your channel. So yes, I can't wait for your video. I'll put it in the show notes, a link to your video. But Pete, this is great. We'll have to do it again very soon. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to watch your video next week.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.